My daughter knows nothing about her partner whom she's dating for 2 years. My daughter, 21F, started dating her current boyfriend about 2 years ago. She had just broken up with her ex, who she was with for 4 years. So I thought maybe it was a rebound and wasn't too worried about it. But as time went on, their relationship became more serious than I thought it was going to be. My daughter was happier and more energetic, started eating better, and actually started to take care of her health so that she could be better for him. So I wanted to get to know him more, which in my head seemed pretty reasonable since she is my daughter. But when I talked to her boyfriend trying to get to know him better, for whatever reason he was very vague and even seems dismissive about the topic. I thought that maybe he was just shy, so asked my daughter about it. But she told me that he doesn't really talk about himself a whole lot, and even she didn't know a whole lot about him. Besides his few hobbies, the only thing she really knew about him was that he is either currently serving in or working with the military, travels a lot for his work, speaks at least 4 different languages fluently, grew up without parents as an orphan, and where he lived. And as a mother, the fact that my daughter didn't know much about her partner was an issue for me. He wasn't active on social media or anything, so I couldn't go the old name search route. So when I learned that he was either currently serving or working with the military, I asked my father, a retired vet, to talk to him. But after my father had a conversation with him, he told me that her boyfriend is fine and that I shouldn't overthink it without any further discussion. In fact, he supports their relationship, and they seem to have become pretty close, spending time together, talking in the garage, going out for drinks and food, watching old movies, and even going shooting together. I feel like I need to know more about him, since he is my daughter's partner. But I also don't want to ruin anything because I can tell my daughter is happier with him than she has ever been. I've even considered private investigator as an option. Feel like that's going a bit overboard. Should I just accept him for now and expect more details later, or what should I do? Edit 1. I was never going to hire a PI. I just mentioned it in my post just to show the severity of my worry. And it is possible for a parent to be worried about their child without any other hidden agenda. I was once her age, and all I want for her to live better life than mine. Edit 2. I'm 46 years old. I haven't really tried to force him to tell me everything about him to me. I've asked him twice over the years, and both times he just dismissed the topic. For people asking me what languages, I know he speaks English and French because those are the 2 I speak. My daughter has seen him speak Spanish, and she has mentioned that he has been teaching her German. My father has mentioned that he thinks he might know either Dari or something else. And for everyone saying that he is a guaranteed super top secret government person, I think chances of him being a con man with a secret family halfway across the country is higher than him being Jason Bourne Jr. My daughter has on multiple occasions expressed the discomfort of not knowing much about what he is doing, but she told me she is willing to just accept it and go with it for now. Relevant comments. Anon-Emas 1623. So you. Don't trust a secretive military spy sounding dude that you don't know much about. Fair. Don't trust your daughter's judgment at all. So you either didn't raise her to think critically and can't trust her judgment, or you just have a very hard time letting go of control. Problematic. Don't trust your dad after you went to him for help in the first place? WTF? Oop. It's not that I don't trust her judgment, but the fact that she doesn't even know any basic things about him, such as what school he went to or his middle name or whatever. I trust my father, but reason he simply dismissed it makes it worry more because I also don't know what my father did in the military, and I barely ever got to see him as I was growing up because he was busy with his military stuff. OP on needing to learn to accept the facts that she won't know anything about her daughter's boyfriend. Oop. I can accept that he doesn't want to tell me anything. The only thing that worries me is that she doesn't even know anything about him. As for those hobbies, she knows that he likes fishing and reading. I also barely ever saw my father when he was in the military because he wasn't allowed to tell us what he was doing, so my father just telling me he's fine doesn't put me at much ease. It's that hard to understand, that a parent can just be worried about their children without any hidden agenda. Ice Cream Queen 42, what do you know about him? Does he own a car? Is it decent? How long has he had it? Does he own or rent? Roommates? Pets? If he says he owns, you can easily find out if that is true by calling the assessor's office. Zillow will even tell you when and how much that house sold for. How does he spend his days? Does he see your daughter evenings and weekends, so he might be going to an office during the day? Will he say if he grew up in your town? Will he say if he went to college? What are these languages that he claims to speak? Do you live in a small town or big city? Would it be easy to find people who might know him? There are a lot of things you can flesh out here that will be big factors in the analysis of whether he is sketchy or might be legit. OP. He owns 2 cars, and both cars are cars that even makes my husband jealous. I don't know his current living situation, but my daughter told me he lives by himself and has no pets. He is usually with her every weekend and holidays unless he is gone. My daughter told me he likes to read, work out, and watch old movies. No and no. He isn't from our area because we are a pretty small town. All we know about his past is that he didn't have parents. I know he speaks English and French because I speak them. My daughter says he speaks Spanish well, and he is currently teaching her German. And my father, I think, once mentioned that he thinks he might know either Dari or something similar. I live in a decent-sized town, but he live about 2 hours drive away. Update, April 11th, 2024. Screw all of you who told me that I'm a narcissistic, nosy helicopter parent. I talked to my daughter last night about my concerns. I told her that I'll always worry about her, even she does, end up hating me or pushing me away. When I told her about my concern about her relationship, I expected her to hang up or get upset at me, but instead she broke down and cried a little bit, because she also sometimes feels those worries. She told me that although he does make her happy, she feels that they haven't really grown any closer or made any progress in the relationship, and the fact that she still didn't know a lot about his life made her overthink and stress herself out. She also told me that she had thought maybe that was cheating on her or something, since they didn't have a sexual relationship. My daughter is abstinent, but he showed no real signs of cheating. We talked on the phone for about 3 hours, and she decided that she will invite the boyfriend over to my house this Saturday, and we can ask him to tell us anything he can tell us. We don't plan on forcing him to say anything he can't. At the end of the call, my daughter told me that she loves me, and that she is lucky to have a mother like me that worries and cares about her. I also talked to my father, and told them that although I love and trust him, I still would like to know more. He wanted to know why, and I told him just in case if the boyfriend is a con man, what are the chances he might be able to BS his way into my father's safe zone? He thought about it for a while, and decided that I had a point, and that he didn't want to take those chances if there was any. So screw all of you who said that I was being an overbearing, bossy, and controlling mother who will end up getting cut out of my daughter's life. Because my daughter thinks I'm being perfectly reasonable, and she is glad that I care about her. A lot of people on the previous post told me that he could be a special force, Operation, SEAL, 3-letter, spy. I honestly feel like if that really was the case, then he should be able to tell us a cover story, or just tell us that he can't talk about it, rather than just dismissing the question awkwardly when it comes up. And he wasn't just doing that to me whenever any member of our family or my daughters asks him a question or something. To try to get to know him, he shuts it down. And seriously, life isn't a movie. There's a higher chance of him being a weirdo who is secretly hiding a family halfway across the county than the chances of him being Bond and Bourne's love child. And to the one Redditor who told me that I should try to seduce the boyfriend, no, just no. Edit 1. No, it wasn't my plan to interrogate the boyfriend. All I mentioned to her was my discomfort of the fact that she knew so little about her boyfriend. My daughter was the one who came up with the idea of talking to him about it because she has the right to at least try to talk to him about as his girlfriend. And then she asked me if I wanted to be there just to support her, and I agreed, since I was planning on baking cheesecake for my daughter that day anyway. Edit 2. Some people mentioned that my attitude towards some of the comment changed compared to my first post. That's just because I ignored it at first, but I remembered that I could return the same tone and attitude I received from others. And yes, according to some comments, I could definitely be a bitch. But fortunately for me, my father didn't teach me to be a little bitch. Edit 3. IDK liked to make it clear at people that I didn't make my daughter go for abstinence. I wasn't abstinent, and neither was my husband. And we aren't involved any religion or philosophy that promotes abstinence. My daughter decided that she wanted to be abstinent after her middle school sex ed, because she didn't want to be a kid with a smaller kid. And no, we aren't in any school district that promotes abstinence to kids. Additional comment from OOP. OOP. She lives by herself in her apartment with the money she made on her own. While going to college, she got accepted into which is paid for by the scholarships she applied for. Even bought herself a car before I could give her her first car. If she wants me there just because she wants me to be there, I don't see that as her not being able to handle herself. She is mature enough to make good life decisions, and one of those decisions was to ask me to be there with her for the conversation. I 30F cheated on my husband, 27 me, and now I suspect he's seeing another woman, new update. I know I did something awful and disgusting, and when I couldn't take the guilt anymore, I cut off my affair partner and confessed everything to my husband. He got more upset and depressed than angry, and I begged for him to not divorce me. I proposed counseling, therapy, even allowing him to have sex with other women, but he wasn't interested. He said he wanted to try to work us out, and I jumped in being the best wife a man can ask for. I cook his favorite dishes, leave him loving notes, and bought new lingerie to entice him. His reactions are lukewarm at best. He smiles and thanks me, but not once he has said he loves me since I have confessed. He barely initiates anything, and I basically have to push myself on him. Not that he complains. Sometimes we talk about this, but I think I still lost the man I love. His behavior with me feels very artificial, and nothing changes his facade. I can be playful, I can be sad, I can get angry, and I can get seductive. His reaction is always this stupid smile and polite words. He was so emotional and sincere before all of this happened. I want him to let out his true emotions with me. Even if he hates me, I still love him so much. What can I do to fix this? TLDR. I cheated on my husband. He didn't get angry and is always kind with me, but I feel he's become indifferent to me. Relevant comments. Independent Farm 628 OP. Is this a troll post? If not, please share some details. How long have you been together and how long was the affair? Who is the other man? Co-worker? OP. We have been married for 5 years. My affair lasted a couple of months and it was with a client. Independent Farm 628. Okay, thank you. What do you mean by cutting off the affair? Is this person still a client? Do you have to have business contact with him? Are you seeing a therapist? Do you know why you strayed? OP. I ended my relationship with the client and passed his contract to a co-worker. No contact ever since. I have been doing individual therapy. I don't know why I did all this. My body felt like it was on autopilot. Original post, March 23, 2024. He knows I cheated. We didn't separate and I begged him to not divorce and let me fix this. He agreed, but his behavior since my confession has basically been one of indifference. Like I wrote on my last post, I do my best to be the best wife he could ask for. I cook his favorite foods, get him gifts, screw his brains out every night. He just smiles and thanks me. He acts kind and never yells at me, but I feel his icy indifference under that mask of courtesy. 2 weeks ago, he started coming home late, very late. And when he does, he just goes to bed. I asked him what's going on, and he told me in the kindest way possible that it's not my business. I call him when he stays out and he picked up only once. I heard a woman laughing in the background. I am starting to think he is cheating back on me. It fucking hurts. If he told me at least I would do my best to stomach it, I deserve this after all. But he won't tell me, he just shuts me out. A common friend told me she spotted him in a car with a woman she didn't recognize, and this felt like a stab in the heart. She said she couldn't describe her exactly because she wore big sunglasses, but she recognized my husband because of his particular taste in neckties. They were talking, but my friend said that from their position, it looked like they were holding their hands, or one of them was touching the other's lap. I don't know what to do. If he is having an affair, I deserve it, but I need to know. The uncertainty is killing me. Should I confront him? Should I try to find out more? Update March 26, 2024. He left me. I did like you guys said and begged him to talk to me. He didn't want to, but I cried and yelled so much I puked all over. He got softer with me. He helped me clean up and we talked. I asked him if he was cheating on me. and he said he was talking with someone, but didn't do anything with her. I asked if she was the woman my friend saw him with. He thought on it a little but said no. It was another woman whom he met a month ago in his office. I asked him how could he, and said I gave him permission. And he didn't do anything besides unloading his problems and our situation with her. But he played it like he was having a full affair so I could feel what he felt, especially because according to him, I neglected him and made it obvious I was cheating on him. He said he was suffering, and I was almost rubbing it in his face. I told him I wasn't doing it on purpose, and he said this was even worse because I didn't care at all. He said that everything I did after confessing meant nothing and just made him think I am selfish, self-centered, and lack any sort of self-respect. I asked him if we could work on myself and our marriage, but he said we can have counseling to sort ourselves out, but the marriage is over. He said he wishes no ill on me and decided to cut his charade because he could no longer bear to the woman he once loved suffer like that. But he said, I am no longer that woman. I started sobbing again, and he held me, but he kept saying no when I asked him we work this out. I asked him what he was going to do, and he's moving out. He already found a new place. I asked him if he was going to live with that woman, and he said but she was close enough. I asked him how he could pick a total stranger he met a month ago over his wife of 5 years. He said his wife of 5 years no longer exists. He has to pick between two strangers, and that woman made a much better impression on him. I told him he was a fool and he could not know. This woman will probably use and dump him. He got harsh and said she's better than me for sure. He said he won't say to our families our marriage ended because I cheated, but because we grew apart, and that he will leave the house to me, as long as I make the divorce smooth. But if I try to take him to the cleaners, drag it out, or cause any problem, he will tell everyone what I did and destroy me and my reputation. This happened yesterday, and he has already packed up almost everything. I can't stop crying and I can't believe this is happening. This is horrible and unfair. Relevant comment. One last comment from OP. You guys are right saying that I suck. But he has fault too. He never really wanted to fix this. He used me for months and then discarded me. And yet I want him back and forgive and forget all the hurt we done to each other. As for his girl, I don't think she will be good for him. New update. Got served divorce papers today, April 11, 2024. This feels like a nightmare. I keep telling myself it's not real, and I am going to wake up. My husband moved out 2 weeks ago, ostensibly to live with another woman. But I kept eye and eats on him, had some friends tell me his going-ons, and seemingly there was no other woman at all. I hoped he was just collecting his thoughts and that he would come back to me. But today he did it. He had me served. I don't want to believe he is done with us. I love him so much and I miss him every day. Story 3.
AITA for rejecting my boyfriend's proposal even though I've been dropping hints that I want him married.
My 26F and boyfriend, 30 millimeters, have been dating for 3 years. We don't live together because we both want to get married first because our parents wouldn't agree to cohabiting before marriage. I've been fairly obvious about wanting to get married and my boyfriend has picked up on it. Last week we went to my great-aunt's funeral. Although I didn't know her very well, I was still upset and it was really hard to see how much it hurt my mother. So after the funeral, we went to a hall that we rented to cater to the other mourners, and to remember her, my boyfriend saw this as a chance to propose. This left me mortified, and everyone was staring at us for using this to make it about ourselves. I said no, told he got angry, and walked off saying that I'm the one who wants to get married, so I shouldn't care where he proposes. He also said that if I truly loved him, I would say yes. He's ignoring me right now, and won't give me a chance to explain. In any other scenario, I would say yes, but I didn't think it was the right place or time. I'm wondering if I'm the asshole because I rejected him, even though I want to get married, when I asked my coworker. She agreed that what I did was wrong, but wants some more opinions from people who don't know me. So, Ada, edit. I'm seeing a lot of comments talking about how we let our parents dictate our lives, so I just want to clarify that we both live on our own and have spent long periods of time at each other's apartments. The only reason we don't live together is out of respect to our parents' views. I have a roommate and he doesn't, so I spend most of my time at his place. We just don't officially live together. Thank you for all your responses. We're both speaking to each other about everything. We both agree that we should have communicated more about our future together. The situation is progressing. However, I'm reevaluating our relationship and things that have happened recently and in the past. He's adamant about being in the right cause. He believes that he was trying to cheer everyone up by giving us something to celebrate instead of mourn. I didn't realize how emotionally immature he really is. AITA has no consensus bot. OOP was NTA. Top comments. MD Thomas, I'm going to say NTA. A funeral is no place to propose. Music with rocks, in, NTA. The only explanation I can think of is that he doesn't want to get married, but also wants you to be the reason. So he proposed in the absolute worst possible way, so that you said no. Then he can hold that over you for the rest of the relationship whenever you imply you should get married. I proposed, and you said no. I'm not going to ask again. Second cup of coffee. His stating that you are the one that wants to get married is interesting. So he doesn't want to get married? Since he doesn't want to get married, why is he pouting and telling you to say yes? He doesn't want to get married, proposed at a funeral, which pretty much guarantees a no to the proposal. So he should be happy you said no. Update, April 11, 2024. A lot has happened since my first post. Firstly, me and my boyfriend have since broken up. This was for a multitude of reasons, the biggest one being that he cheated on me. My former boyfriend and I had not been living together, but I did spend most of my time staying at his place, as I had a roommate, and he never. However, when I went to visit him, his friend told me that he had been cheating on me and had gotten another girl pregnant. This crushed me because we had been dating for nearly 4 years. This led to us breaking up. When I questioned him about why he had cheated, he told me he wasn't the type to commit to anyone, despite initially pruning me with the promise that we would be in a committed relationship. This was hard for me to understand, as we had been speaking about marriage and the future. When we used to talk about marriage, he would always say that he would never be happy in a marriage where he got proposed to, as it would be an insult to his masculinity. Looking back on this, I should have realized that he had many noticeable toxic traits. He proposed to me at my aunt's funeral, which is something I will never understand. When I asked him why he did that, he initially claimed it was to make everyone happy. But when I pushed him for more information, he told me it was to show his lover that I was a bad person. This is because he was cheating on me with my aunt's friend's daughter who was at the funeral. So he proposed to me to show that our relationship is over to that girl in order to justify why he was cheating, even though he knew that I was grieving. Since we broke up about 3 weeks after the funeral, his friend who exposed the affair to me told me that because she was pregnant, he had to find a way to make her not leave him, and chose the funeral to make a public display for her. I haven't seen him since the breakup, and his friend moved all of my stuff out of the apartment for me, so I don't have to see him. His family are very strict, and because he is having a kid out of wedlock, they have refused to help him, so he has been contacting me for help. I haven't not responded, nor do intend to respond, because I will not lower my self-worth to help someone who never truly cared about me. Since our breakup, my life has improved, as I can now do the things that he never wanted me to do, and I've now realized how lucky I am that we never married. Story 4. AITA for apparently ruining my cousin's wedding because my boyfriend was not invited. My cousin, 28F, and I, 26F, are incredibly close, practically like sisters. We've shared everything from childhood memories to discussing our love lives. I've always been there for her, offering a shoulder to cry on whenever a guy broke her heart. She is getting married this December. In my country, everyone pays for their own seat at the table. I've been in a committed relationship with my boyfriend for 4 years, and we're eagerly planning our own future together, including getting married after we finish out theses. Despite our close bond, my cousin has never met my BF in person, only through video calls. I've extended invitations for her to visit and meet him numerous times, but due to her busy schedule, she's never been able to make it. Conversely, I've made the effort to travel to her city and meet her BF. We were eagerly anticipating the moment when they would finally meet at her wedding, and we had even discussed it during our last conversation. We had dreams of traveling the world together, making plans, and continuing to be the inseparable duo, now 4. We've always been. However, my excitement was abruptly shattered when my mom received a call from my aunt, my cousin's mom, delivering unexpected news. They had decided not to invite significant others of family members to the wedding due to budget constraints, while still allowing the partners of her friends to attend. This decision felt like a slap in the face, particularly after all the anticipation we had shared about her and her partner finally meeting mine at her wedding. I couldn't shake the feeling that this decision was made to avoid upsetting her friends, some of whom had let her down multiple times in the past, and that they take me for granted. The news left me feeling devastated. It wasn't just about not being invited anymore. It felt like I had lost a piece of my family. All the plans we had made together suddenly evaporated. While my boyfriend wasn't angry, he understandably questioned the value of investing in future vacations with someone who hadn't even invited him to their wedding. Additionally, it hurt even more that my cousin didn't have the courage to tell me herself. Instead, she had her mom relay the message through mine. When I expressed my disappointment, some family members, particularly uncles and aunts, accused me of ruining my cousin's wedding day by speaking up. They argued that it was her day, and she had the right to do as she pleased. However, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. While I understood weddings are expensive, my boyfriend had even offered to pay for his seat, as is customary in out-country. So AITA for speaking up? Edit. I'd like to add that I am particularly hurt because my cousin didn't tell me herself, though we spoke on the phone yesterday morning, and she knew she was not inviting my BF, and that my aunt was going to call any day to deliver the news. Yet, she didn't say a word about retracting the verbal invitation. Posting this here because I want to see both sides of the problem before speaking directly to my cousin. I don't want to act out of anger without getting perspective. Relevant comments. Can you offer to pay for his meal such as seat? Yes. In my country, everyone pays for their seat. Everyone. People actually gain money in weddings, if you take into account that we pay for our seats and then give presents. It's just that they have to pay up. And then, on the wedding day, they recover the money they lost. Elaborate on that. Yep. The bride and groom text us a bank account, it can also be given by hand, and you deposit money there. Usually you pay the seat, which is a closed price. It doesn't depend on what you consume, plus some more money as a gift. The price is firstly assumed, but everyone ends up kind of knowing. Her aunt will tell someone, who will then tell someone else, and at the very end, most people know. What country? I am in Spain. This is something new that started only a couple of years ago. You are expected to cover your own seat. I don't know if this is done in every part of Spain, but I've had to do it in every wedding I've attended. It is strange and insulting, I agree. Editor's note. Here are some other interesting facts about Spanish weddings that I found when fact-checking. And yes, paying for your meal is on the list. What did your cousin say when you spoke to her? So I talked to my cousin yesterday morning, and she didn't mention it, though she surely knew she was retracting the invitation. My aunt called my mother to deliver the news yesterday night, quite late, so I haven't had the chance to ask her about it. Everything broke havoc because I told my aunt that I felt hurt with that decision, and my uncle and aunt, who are visiting, heard me and said I was ruining everything. I plan on talking to her this week, but I wanted to post this here to see both sides or the problem. Thank you for your answer. Maybe she just wants people she knows there. My cousin is inviting people she has never met. I specifically can think of 2 boyfriends she had never ever seen, but they are her friends' partners, so they can go. The wedding is in December. My cousin and I talk every week, including yesterday morning, when she could have told me. I heard from my aunt yesterday at 1 freaking a.m., which is a great hour to call, I know. I do think my cousin had enough time to tell me herself. Just bring him to where she is and introduce them. She is currently in her home city, Palma de Majorca. I'd need a plane. She usually lives in Madrid. I have invited her over to my town, which is 2 hours again, a lot of times. She's never wanted to come. I don't find it appropriate to just arrive at her house and knock on the door. Though maybe that's what I should do. Are you sure your aunt didn't make it up and force her daughter to go along with it? It may be, but my cousin could have told me yesterday morning, even just to tell me that it really was my aunt's decision. We really have an excellent relationship. She knows I am a reasonable person and would understand her. Thing is, my cousin is not organizing anything from her wedding, not even the wedding dress. Everything is being handled by her mother. My cousin says she doesn't want the stress. My aunt has always been quite jealous of me. As I found a BF quite earlier than my cousin, they are those kind of desperate people who need to have a man by their side at all times. But I would be quite shocked if my aunt had made this up. It isn't like her. I will have to call my cousin to confirm, though. Stop karma farming and communicate with her. I want to fix the situation. I don't even know how karma works, Lowell, but I loved that expression. Karma farming. Not being sarcastic, actually chuckled. The reason I asked here before talking to her is because I really do love her very much. She is an extremely sensitive person. I've seen her crying because she couldn't decide on going to a place or staying home. I wish I was exaggerating. I am, right now, quite disappointed and angry, but I don't want to risk hurting her if I was being unreasonable, especially after some family members said I was ruining the wedding by speaking up. Cue my question here. To see what other people thought, are you in the bridal party? And what do you mean by partners being invited? She isn't having one. She is extremely conservative and hates bridal parties. I think that, if she did have it, I'd 100% be on it. We really have a very good realtionship. I'm also helping her with some things, like the makeup. I'm even in charge of her makeup on that day as well. She asked me to think about how she can wear it and do her makeup that day, so she wouldn't have to pay for a makeup artist. I agreed. I mean boyfriends. I know for a fact that there is no limitation regarding the space. I have been on the place, and I know it's massive and can host more people than the ones she has invited. Maybe I am being dramatic. I'll think about it. Thank you for your input. OP is voted NTA. Update post, April 6th, 2024, 4 days later. Here I am again. You can find the original post in https www.reddit.com/rr Am I the asshole? Comments 1BTTTQQs. Comment KXR72 GOS. Long story short, my cousin uninvited my BF from her wedding out of the blue, without giving a plausible explanation and not even calling herself, but sending her mother to tell my mother, who ultimately told me. I was judged as not the a-hole, so I had a conversation with my cousin a couple of days back. It seems like it was a mix of her own decision and her mother's influence. Long story short, she is considering making an exception for my boyfriend, but she couldn't confirm yet. She said she wouldn't know until last minute. However, my aunt informed my mother that they had collectively decided not to make any exceptions. Now, either my cousin or my aunt is not being truthful, and I'm leaning towards my aunt. Here's how it all unfolded. Right from the start, I could sense her nervousness. As you may recall, my aunt had informed my mother that they weren't including Counson's boyfriends in the guest list due to budget constraints. I knew this wasn't the real reason. Their financial status is more than comfortable, but naturally, I didn't confront her directly about it. Instead, I expressed surprise that she hadn't mentioned it to me herself, to which she had no response. And I found the decision, where her friends' boyfriends were invited but not her cousin's boyfriends, quite bizarre. Eventually, she confessed. The budget excuse was made up by her mother, as I suspected. The actual reason behind this odd rule was that she didn't like some of her cousins from her other side of the family, who aren't related to me. Boyfriends. She simply didn't want to see them at the wedding. Her solution was to exclude any family boyfriends, including mine, from the guest list. After this, she did mention her intention to try to make an exception for me. However, she said she would not be able to confirm until a few months had passed. I have no idea why. She literally said, "I'll try to invite him at the last minute." The conversation ended there, with me not really knowing how to feel. We didn't argue, but we weren't as sweet to each other as we usually are. Mind you, I did not tell her I wanted an exception made with me or anything like that, I promise. I would never try to change a guest list. The only thing I complained about was not being told by her directly, absolutely nothing else. The exception thing was only her doing, not mine. The relatives who told me I was ruining the wedding by complaining have not apologized or talked to me about the issue yet, and I don't really think they will. I'm at a loss for how to feel about all this. I think there were far more tactful ways to handle the situation. I can't even decide if this revelation makes things better or worse, LOL. Anyway, thank you very much for your help. Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. OP, I'm sorry you're being stressed out, but let me explain it. In 4 years, your cousin has not shown enough interest in your committed significant other to go out of her way to meet him. She's not interested in meeting him at her wedding. I seriously doubt that she is interested in her and her hubby ever traveling with you and your SO. You do not have the close relationship with your cousin that you thought you had. She did not handle it all well, how she or her mother communicated with you. She's a coward. She sounds like the kind of person who goes along to get along and just nodded when you made plans for the future instead of saying, no, I don't think so. I'm not interested. Maybe she even made minimal contribution to ideas for travel but wasn't sincere. You can either go to the wedding without your BF and make nice with your relatives, or you can stay home with your BF. Even if she were to offer him a seat at some late date because someone else canceled, my suggestion would be to say, thanks anyway. BF made other plans with one of his friends. Ope. Yep. I 100% agree with every word you said. It's a shock, but it is what it is. And I agree. If my BF gets a last-minute invitation, he will probably refuse it. Thank you very much for your ASNOR.
Story 5.
AITA for keeping score with my family and ruining dinner. I, 27 midder, am the third of 4 siblings, and have always felt like an afterthought. Lori, 33F, Chuck, 29 meter, and Jade, 25F, have always gotten the first and best from my parents and each other. I get the leftovers if I'm lucky. I haven't gotten a birthday present from any of my siblings in about 10 years, but I still get asked to pitch in for group gifts for each of them every year. On Friday night, we were having a family dinner, and it honestly felt like every other sentence was a dig at me or a less than subtle brag by my siblings about something they have been given by my parents that I was denied. They talked about how nice almost all of our weddings were, but made sure to mention it was okay that my wife and I had a small low-key wedding. And it was okay. We loved it. But they brushed over the fact that my parents paid for all of my siblings' weddings, but not mine. Because somehow they couldn't afford it, because they were saving up for Jade's wedding. They brought up how little student loans they have, because my parents helped them. All of them lived on campus at expensive 4-year schools. I lived at home and went first to a very prestigious, very hard to get into, watchmaking school. I got paid to attend this school, so I paid rent at home. My parents paid for my tools. And I appreciate the help. I really do. But they paid $120, $150K each for my siblings. They gave me $7K for tools, but to them it's equal. When I went back to school on my own, I didn't ask for money and wasn't offered it. When my brother went back to school, they covered everything without him even having to ask. There were many other small moments, comments about cars and other lifestyle choices, but what made me snap was my brother and his wife mentioning their marriage being so great because they do things like spontaneous dates, like the one they had the prior Friday night. The Friday night where my parents called my wife and I last minute to cancel plans. They had to eat dinner at our house because they had to watch Chuck's kids because of an emergency. Turns out that emergency was a dinner for Chuck and my Sil at Texas Roadhouse. I had spent hours making my grandpa's ziti and meatballs with homemade marinara because it's my mom's favorite. I wanted more than anything to scream at them, but instead I got up and left without saying a word, and my wife followed me. When my mom called me later to ask why I left, I just explained exactly why. I explained the favoritism, the unfairness, and the fact that it doesn't feel like they care about me. She didn't say much, and I wasn't really looking for an explanation or an apology in the moment. I just felt like it was self-evident, but if she really didn't see it, I'd spell it out. Evidently, at least parts of what I said have been shared with my siblings, because now Chuck and Lori are furious at me and saying I ruined dinner, and my mom is upset that I am hurt. They say I'm immature for keeping score. AITAH? Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. Your siblings are keeping score as well. They use that score to belittle you every time they see you. Your parents, including your mom, who is all of a sudden upset that you are hurt, have allowed that to happen. Your mom is only upset because you finally stood up for yourself and called them all out. Keep on keeping score. They certainly will. Oop. Honestly, on the phone, she didn't seem agitated at all, but when I started explaining everything, she just kinda got sad, I guess. She got real quiet and didn't say much. Commenter, NTA. I don't know if this is the best solution, but if I were you, I would write everything down just like you told us. Then send it to each one of my family members in a group chat. Then block them. I would move on from a relationship with them and love them from a distance. Sidebar: do you and all your siblings look exactly alike? Oop. Jade is adopted, so no. But she has always been the baby and been treated as such anyway. My first draft had a lot more background, but it was way over the character limit. I look almost exactly like my paternal grandfather. I even have the same thing with my eyes, where they were blue when I was born, but have formed a brown ring around the outside as I've grown up. So there's almost no possibility that I'm not my father's son, if that's what you are getting at. Jade is on my side, incidentally, and she feels awful about the wedding thing, but she didn't find out about them not paying for my wedding until about 6 months ago, which is 6 months after her wedding. She assumed that they had paid for part of my house or something, because verbally that had always been the deal. But no, I got to pay for my own wedding, and my parents never honored the long-standing agreement of, we have money saved for each of you, and you can either use it for a wedding or anything else you want as a wedding gift when you get married. This is not Jade's fault. She didn't ask for any of this. She didn't even get to plan her own wedding. My mom and Lori did that. It was extravagant because Mom and Lori wanted it to be extravagant. Jade and her husband mostly hang out with my wife and I when they are in town. That has been a pattern for a long time. Family gives her stuff she didn't ask for to, I guess, make up for her early childhood sucking, and it's often at the expense of me. But since she was like 6, she'd always then share it back with me. Jade and I are fine. She shouldn't have been responsible for policing the fairness of the adults in our lives. Commenter: have you straight out laid all this information in front of your family like you told us? Or have you personally been taking all this in yourself? I'm glad your sibling Jade is empathetic with you. Oop. The Friday night phone call with my mom was the first time I laid more than one incident at a time out for anyone. It's also the most thorough I've ever been about explaining any single incident because it's the first time I didn't get interrupted. We were on the phone for 1.5 hours, and I was talking for most of it. Commenter: you seem like an emotionally strong person. Sometimes when people know they can't get to you, they can't help but keep trying. Says more about them. Question: if you weren't related, would you even hang out with these people? You do get to choose your family, you know? Don't worry about rocking the boat. Sail your own. Oop. I definitely still hang out with Jade and her husband, as well as my grandparents. But my Oma, Dad's mom, already sees me more than anyone else in my immediate family, and my Pop, Mom's dad, has spent more time with me than the other grandkids since I was a child. I have autism, and he almost certainly would have been diagnosed had he been born today. We both need breaks from crowds, and we have similar sensory issues, so we'd bail on family gatherings to go play bocce for as long as I can remember. Mini update, clarification in comments. January 31st, 2024, next day. I don't know where the best place to put all this, so I'm putting it here if that's okay. My first draft contained some of this info, but I had to edit a lot to get down to the character limit. Some of this has been shared in other comments, but I'm just consolidating in hopes this is seen and answers questions. 1. There is no reason to believe I am not my father's child. The list of genetic coincidences that would be necessary for that to be the case is long and not worth rehashing. He doesn't have any male relatives that could explain it either. He has one sibling, my aunt, and none of his cousins have ever been in his life, or even remotely locale. I look just like my paternal grandfather. I always have. He died when my father was young, but, by all accounts, he was a good father and is remembered fondly. 2. My younger sister has been the beneficiary of many, if not most, of the things my parents chose not to give to me, but she did not ask for any of that, and has been one of the only people consistently trying to make it right. I mean, for goodness sake, she was trying to fix it when she was 6. She has definitely not seen everything, but what she has seen she has tried to correct. She is perhaps guilty of assuming the best of people and not asking questions, but she isn't heartless, and getting angry at her isn't going to fix anything. We talked for a long time after I posted this. She had been told she was contributing to a birthday gift for me every year, since at least 2018. She gave money to my older sister to buy my wife and I tickets to my favorite soccer team, and then when my wife and I inevitably posted about going to games, she assumed one of the games we went to each year was the gift she had been contributing money towards. There is a lot of backstory there, but the gist of it is Jade and I have always gotten along well, and Jade does not participate in singling me out negatively. She and her husband spend time with my wife and I frequently, usually just the four of us. 3. I was definitely favored by my maternal grandfather growing up, but it's not like I got extra gifts or anything. He and I just have very similar personalities, and that showed at a young age. I am on the spectrum, and I feel very strongly that were he my age, he'd have been diagnosed as well. We both struggle mightily with a lot of sensory things, but loud crowds and being surrounded by a lot of disparate sources of noise, like perhaps his loud Italian family, overwhelms both of us, so both of us hide for a tea least some portion of all family gatherings. Over time, we started hiding together by just leaving to play boxy or locking ourselves in the kitchen to cook. As an adult, he has made comments that indicate he sees that I'm not being given as much, and in the last 2 to 3 years, he has definitely given more items to me than anyone else. Things he wants me specifically to have when he passes, and that he wants me to enjoy now. That was definitely a source of tension on Friday. He is quite wealthy, and my older siblings are accusing me of trying to enrich myself based on inheritance. I have no clue what his plans are, and I have not, and will never ask. It's not my business, and he has always had a pathological need to make things even. Everyone gets the same number of boxes at Christmas, with as near as possible the exact amount of money spent on each recipient. So I do not expect him to behave differently with his estate. I honestly expect that anything that doesn't go to charitable causes will be divided evenly. But I really think it's all going to charity. But where my older siblings see the monetary value of his record collection and view it as a financial windfall, I just see a beautiful collection of music I get to keep listening to. I'd never sell that. They feel that I am hoarding the antique watches he gave me, the most valuable of which is a 60s Timex Marlin. But again, they just want me to sell them and divide the cash. First of all, they aren't valuable except in sentiment. Second of all, Pop is very much still alive and only gave them to me because he knows I will repair the ones I like and wear them. Selling them would be extremely rude and entitled. They are angry that he gave me his first nice car, because it does have nominal value even now. Too old to be valuable as a reliable vehicle, not old or rare or desirable enough to be a collector's item. But to me, it's a sentimental item. It was his Sunday car for years, and while I've had to put a lot of work into keeping it running, well, it's in excellent cosmetic condition. My older siblings are contesting that actually, I am the favorite, and the very measurable and extremely generous financial gifts given to them by my parents are somehow dwarfed by their IMO very inflated estimation of the financial value of the gifts my grandfather has given me recently. 4. My paternal grandmother has openly favored me more and more as I've aged. Again, this is not financial, and to my knowledge she isn't in a position to leave me an inheritance, not that I'd even ask that of her. There is an old clock of hers made by a local clockmaker and housed in a handmade cabinet that I used to spend hours looking at when I was really young, that she actually put multiple labels inside of as early as when I was 5 or 6, saying that it belongs to me. But I didn't ask for that. I appreciate it, and I will gladly accept it if she still feels that way when the time comes. But I don't spend the time I spend with her as some sort of plot to steal her clock. I just like hanging out with my Oma. She's a really funny lady, and she likes walking with my wife and I and our dogs. She stays with us in our house on holidays in lieu of staying in the guest house my parents had built for her. My siblings are under the impression that she has somehow supported me financially. Again, unless there is something I am not aware of, she is very much not in the position to do this. 5. My wife and I will be meeting with my parents at some point over the next week to talk. I do not know what to expect, but we'll be taking the time to write stuff down in preparation. I don't even know what I want from it, but I will be bringing up family therapy. OP is voted NTA. Update post, April 11th, 2024, 2.5 months later. So, update time. About a week after that post, my wife and I sat down with my parents and cleared the air. As several people suggested, I wrote down my thoughts and compiled, to the best of my knowledge, a listing and full accounting of the disparity in what my siblings were given over the years and what I was given. I did actually sit down and do the math, and it turns out that while I was at the technicum, I actually paid my parents more in rent than they ever paid for my tools. But the final reckoning came to between $370K on the high end, Jade, to $190K on the low end, Chuck, for how much my parents directly gave to my siblings that they never gave me. Sitting down and seeing the full amount all spelled out like that is probably the angriest I got during this whole mess. My parents had been aware there were discrepancies, but really pushed back on the actual amounts until we sat down and went through each major gift incident case by case, by which point my dad admitted my reckoning was likely conservative. That was more or less the end of any productive talk that night. My dad just claimed they didn't think it had gotten that bad, but wouldn't give any details about how they could have possibly not noticed. In the interim, Chuck and Lori continued to escalate their anger, continued to call and text me, my parents, and extended family. I have not spoken to either of them directly since, and don't expect to anytime soon. Roughly a week after that first sit-down, my mom and dad asked to meet again. Lots was said, but the gist is this. They felt I was doing well and didn't need their help. Basically, they thought I would be fine without them. They admitted they probably live outside their means and gave more to my older siblings than they should have and could never have given me that much. They claimed the timing of my wedding lined up with probably the most dire of their overspending lack of saving, and that they literally did not have the funds to live up to their promise, especially as they were paying for Jade's tuition, car, and apartment at that time. They have offered money, they have offered to pay for vacations, a car, all kinds of stuff, but I think they don't really get it yet. My wife and I don't want their money, but we aren't really sure yet what an ideal resolution to this looks like. At least they have admitted they were unfair and are open to working things out. My wife and I spent Easter with Jade and her husband, and my grandparents. My mom and dad came over in the evening. This seems to be more or less the new normal for now. Relevant comments. I bet they'll ask you for monetary help with end-of-life costs. That's a bit of why I don't want to accept any gifts from them right now. As it currently stands, if nothing changed about our relationship between now and when they retired, I wouldn't feel any guilt about leaving them on their own, although I'd bet anything Jade and her husband would make sure they didn't become destitute. I just really don't think I'd be in a position to be guilted into helping them. If I let them pay off my mortgage, though, I know they would try and use that as leverage. I know them too well not to know that's what they'd do. Right now, I don't wish any ill on them. I just wouldn't step in to help them, at least not monetarily. They spent recklessly. I think they still spend recklessly. I don't think any of my pop's frugality or understanding of being poor made its way down to my mom. I think she doesn't remember when she was really little and his company hadn't taken off yet, or if she does, she refuses to take any lessons from it. I don't think they have robust retirement savings, and I don't trust them to live frugally, even if they do. I fully expect them to be broke within 5 years of retiring, and I don't want them to have a way to try and guilt me into helping. I know Chuck and his family aren't going to feel like they are in a position to help, even if they are. They make great money but always complain about being broke. By no definition are they broke. They just have expensive tasties and trashy friends. And unless there is a mending of fences, Laurie will likely be too mad at them for bobbing me by doing the bare minimum and listening to my grievances that she will be glad to see them suffer. Especially if she doesn't think there's going to be anything for her to inherit. I really truly think she would discard her own parents without a second thought if they blew through her inheritance. More on Jade and the birthday gifts. I don't really have time to address everything, but the birthday thing with Jade was addressed in comments on the first post. The short version is she and her husband had been giving Lori money, and a really sizable amount of it turns out, every year to buy my wife and I tickets to see the Union play. Then, when we inevitably posted pictures of us at games, she assumed that at least one of those games was the gift. She even pointed out one of my Instagram posts last year, explicitly called it a birth gift. I didn't specify it was my gift from my wife. And to be fair, the comment Jade left on it at the time, in retrospect, very much reads like she was glad I was enjoying her gift to me. So the reality is, Lori was just straight up stealing a couple $100 from Jade every year for at least 5 years. I love Jade and her husband, and they are very sweet. But they are very naive. Both grew up wealthy, both grew up spoiled, and neither has any real sense of how much things cost. They just genuinely thought tickets to a union game cost multiple times over what they really do and didn't blink when Lori asked for money for my birthday gift every year. Jade and her husband are not speaking to either of my siblings now. They were both genuinely astonished to hear I hadn't been getting gifts from my siblings. Fun side note, they took my wife AITA to a game this spring and paid for everything, unprompted, and not thinking it made up for everything. They just wanted to do a nice thing. I will not pretend Jade is perfect or that you can't tell she's been overly spoiled, but my God, does she try hard not to be entitled. She and her husband do well financially in their own right, and they share freely. I know she got a leg up, but it's not fair to begrudge her that. She didn't ask for it, and she has never rubbed it in my face, unlike Chuck and Lori. She is mortified at how uneven things are. Chuck and Lori are mad. It's not continuing. Are your parents aware that Lori has been stealing from Jade? They are. I know they are still in contact with her and her family, as well as with Chuck and his. Lori and Chuck are the two that have given them grandchildren, and I don't want or expect my parents to turn a cold shoulder to them. I don't intend to pry into their relationship. My parents know what Lori did. How they want to approach it is their business. In the meantime, my own relationship with my parents is strained and pretty low contact, and I'd rather focus on that. I don't really have any real relationship with either of my older siblings, and I can't see myself ever caring enough to try. If either of them has a come-to-Jesus moment and genuinely wants to make things right, they know where to find me. One more thought from OP on not wanting money from his parents. I believe if I let my parents give me money, which I'm not even sure if they have, they will consider us even, and not actually address the fact that even without the money I was treated differently. Until I have reason to believe the offer of money is coming from anywhere other than an attempt to get back into my good graces and buy my forgiveness, I'm not interested. My wife and I both work and earn good money. We are by far the least well off of my family, but we are comfortable, and we have savings, and retirement savings, which may be more than can be said for the others except Jade and her husband. I don't see or speak to my parents as much as I used to, and so far that's been fine by me. If they want to actually self-reflect and try and make amends, I am very open to it, but not until they acknowledge the non-monetary favoritism as well. Do your grandparents know? My grandparents are fully caught up. They already knew it was skewed. Part of why I'm not overly concerned with settling the score, for lack of a better phrase, is that I have now been told in no uncertain terms I will come out of this better off. I know now that any relationship with my brother or older sister is almost certainly beyond repair. I've accepted that. I think letting my parents ease their conscience by throwing money at the problem will only lead to them not actually taking accountability for their actions.